All right, I think we have Sarah. Because of that's
Okay.
how they can.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I'm gonna be reading a few of my musings on the song Drake's Best I Ever Had. Um, yeah, there are some pictures, but they're not really like that important, but I'll just like check them out. Okay, next slide. Girls love to LARP as of the manic pixie dream varietal. In 2017, Glossier invented a perfume entitled You to honor this quasi narcissistic mindset. And in 2009, just 8 years earlier, Drake released Best I Ever Had. What once might have resonated as crooning, romantic, endearing rap lullaby would perhaps today instead come off as a manipulative yet cliched attempt at love bombing, courtesy of the linguistic influence of armchair TikTok psychotherapists. Drake wanted to make each girl feel like, in Rihanna's words, just 1 year later, she's, quote, the only girl in the world, unquote. He taps into this element of girlhood with such startling precision that he leads a self-aware listener to speculate as to exactly how many girls the rapper has experienced so as to come to such crystalline realizations of the feminine mystique. Next slide. And he tells them, quote, a lot of girls be thinking my songs are about them. But what reason has Drake given them to come to such conclusions? Drake does not answer this question or give the listener much time to think, quickly moving to assuage their doubts. Quote, this is not to get confused. This one's for you. Cleverly, no girl is specified, so every girl can feel special. Next slide. This song is either for you or you are confused, perhaps even hysterical. Notably, a symptom of the now abandoned diagnosis of female hysteria. Delirium results in confused thinking and a lack of awareness of one's surroundings, according to the Mayo Clinic. In a sense, Drake thus foretold the rise of girl bloggers across the internet, donning the couture of hysteria as accessory, known in today's parlance as, quote, lobotomy chic, a phrase coined by TikTok cultural therapist Rain Fisher Kwan, who wrote that lobotomy chic, quote, still cares about being sexy, but knows there's nothing sexy about caring too much, unquote. There's nothing sexy in thinking this song's about you. Actually, there's nothing sexy in thinking. Next slide. Redbubble sells live, laugh, lobotomize me stickers in glossy matte and transparent sheens for $280 plus shipping and handling. Perfect for the reusable aluminum water bottle you lug to those weekly Pilates classes whose movements you have memorized so that were you to achieve lobotomization, you could still glide through the exercises perfectly. Next slide. Quote, when my album dropped, bitches will buy it for the picture. The original minimalist album artwork for the single depicted it as a file on the computer with a plain white background. It was deemed, quote, too obscure by iTunes and soon replaced. Perhaps Drake here was sending the, quote, bitches a subliminal message to be the best ever had as the stuff of esoteric fable, not reality. Succumb to the delusion, and no sooner will you have succumbed than you will be promptly replaced, just as the original album artwork was. In an interview with Complex, Drake explained the meaning behind the video for the song. Myself, oh, quote, myself being a young man, a young single man at that, I kind of wanted to be real about the way I function with women at this current point in my life, which is I don't have one woman that I call my girl. There's different girls in my life that play different roles and I see at different times, but collectively they kind of make up the roster of happiness for me, end quote. Each woman a fraction of the whole, equal in that way. Every individualized girlhood coalescing to form woman herself. Alone, you are never enough, but together as collective, you can do things, quote, bigger than you ever done it alone. I love the second wave of feminism with Drake as all knowing, all loving, omniscient overseer. Note the use of the demonstrative pronoun, quote, this one's for you. This implying that while this song is for you, previous ones were not. And even if the song is for you, there will always be more.
You can keep the.
Okay.
Has this some agglomeration of womanhood continued in his work? Have you identified other places where?
Well, what's that song that he like wrote about like girls partying? Like the one that's like, it's, I'm not like honestly like such a Drake head. But there is a song, like, what's the one? I'm just gonna open Spotify really quick because I like feel like that would have been one of the songs that like you should add to your party playlist. Or it's like the like this, it's like something about like girls partying and like
Nice for what? Is what?
okay, thank you. Yeah, like I think that's like a perfect example of just him pretending to be like such a good boy and just like really there for women in like a very superficial way. Sort of where it's sort of it seems like, oh, like he's really here for me. But if you really analyze the lyrics, it's kind of like talking down, as if that makes sense.
Yeah. But his audience is there's a lot of women who listen to him, right? So he has to he said before in interviews that the reason why his albums are so long is because he has to do some cuts for the people who want the bars, they want the raps. He's got to do some vaguely ethnic cuts for the rest of the world. And he's also got to do some like crooning songs for women.
Yeah.
Do you think that this sort of lover boy, as he's called himself, identity is still resonant with?
I mean, I would say like I don't want to just like universalize my experience. But I think like it really depends on the girl. Like maybe some people like love to like be patronized. Not one of those people. But here's the thing, like I appreciate him as like this like perennial man-child figure. Like I think that's like it's just funny. And I have nothing against him personally. I just think it's interesting.
And any questions from the crowd? Nicole? So the question is about whether or not Drake might have propped up the girl boss as a cultural figure, and subsequently how the dissolution of the girl boss might also have led to a disinterest in Drake's music.
What was the lyric about fashion and partying? All they want. Okay, yeah. I don't know which song that's from, but I think like there is something to be said about just like I hate when like people will just be like, "Oh, like fashion, that's so silly. Like why are you even thinking about that?" But actually like which goes to something that we were talking about just like like the like hidden nuances of just like unpacking like superficial things. Like if he's saying that, he's sort of enforcing like this idea that like fashion and partying are really stupid, but you know, like there are obviously like nuances to that. And he's sort of just like making it a very one-dimensional thing. And that definitely like propped up like the whole girl boss movement. But I don't see the dissolution of that movement really making me want to listen to Drake any less personally. Just because like, I mean, we all know that the girl boss movement like was like a fraud, but I feel like Drake just is sort of he just like has many faces and it just sort of says like whatever feels like is gonna get him like get most people to like love him the most, like just like love him more. And so if he says that, like I feel like he's just saying like whatever needs to be said for his personal ego to be stroked. So I mean, I don't take what he says seriously. I mean, I think he has some bobs. I'm not gonna be like turning to him as like philosopher of our time, if that makes sense.
And he does partake in both of these activities, and it's quite, you know, not that he's only talking about, but he's engaging in partying and fashion, you know, quite overtly.
Yeah, like why the double standard? It's not to get like all cursed like feminism, but like yeah, he's stuck in that mindset.
And I wonder if it maybe is dependent on the people he's surrounded by. I think one thing that people have accused him for this last album is being, you know, still in love with 25-year-olds. Um, and that's why the topics sort of recur, like you want to go to the club, you want to do this, and they're never like talking about their 401k or whatever. um, and it may be just a direct factor of the women he's dealing with who are I don't know,
Yeah,
it's fun to go to the club when you're 25.
sure. And it's like if he's hanging around like 25-year-old girls who are just like hanging out at parties and like talking about fashion all the time, like he doesn't get to like distance himself from that. In a way, he's propping them up.
Any other questions? Awesome, thank you so much, Sarah.